Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from the Street Scores, and apparently the Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman has been let go. He's leaving the Ravens. He even has 1 year left on his contract, and they were like, nah, we are good. So we got to take a look at whether or not the Commanders should try to hire him as offensive coordinator. We have a job opening. He's a job candidate. Of course, we got to talk about the good and the bad, his history, his future, all of that type of stuff. I mean, will we automatically have the best run game in the NFL? Is that all that we need to make the playoffs? Of course, there's always that debate with the 2-to-1 run pass ratio stuff. Of course, do we feel like he can develop Sam Howell? That's one of the most important parts of hiring our next offensive coordinator. Ron Rivera and Mayhew already said that they're already asking potential offensive coordinators in interviews, what is their plan for Sam Howell? Can Greg Roman be able to pass that test? And so again, of course, we got to take a look at the good and the bad, the whys and why nots. We're going to take a look at a lot of statistics. We're going to take a look at a lot of the Ravens fans' reactions too, because they're hilarious. And I want to be able to come to some type of conclusion by the end of this video. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the Commanders Street Scores live stream while we're watching other teams in the playoffs. Sadly, we'll be talking about offensive coordinators, Sam Howell is QB1, draft stuff, free agency stuff. I open up the phone lines for y'all to call in. You'll be a part of the stream. You voice your opinions, you ask whatever questions you may have, all of that type of stuff. So make sure you pull up every Sunday for that. And of course, I have so much content to come out with y'all. Again, I'm always working on one video and then something like this happens. Now I have to report on that, and the video I was working on gets moved back again because you know how long it takes for me to edit videos and stuff like that. So I have so much stuff that I've been trying to get out to y'all for days now, but just something else. There's a lot going on. Even though it's technically the off season for the Commanders, a lot is going on. But without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so let's start all the way in the beginning. Breaking news, the Ravens and offensive coordinator Greg Roman have parted ways. That's a fancy way of putting the fact that he got fired after spending 4 seasons with the team. A long-awaited move in Baltimore has been made. Again, note that, a long-awaited, because we're going to take a look at the fans' reactions and how happy they are about this towards the end of the video. But Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman is stepping down to pursue opportunities per his agency. Roman has been Baltimore's offensive coordinator since 2019. John Harbaugh, who will enter his 16th season at the helm, will begin his search for his 7th offensive coordinator in 16 seasons. That's interesting in itself. And I do want to point out the fact that he did have 1 year left on his contract for like a little over $3 million. And the Ravens were basically like, nah, we'll go ahead and eat that. We just want to go ahead and move on right now. So he technically wasn't fired, but it's basically a firing, and they just wanted to do it in the most respectful way possible because they are tired of Greg Roman. The coaching staff is, and again, the fan base super is. They are celebrating as if they won the Super Bowl. So we're going to take a look at that later and why we should be cautious as Commanders fans if a fan base is that excited about an offensive coordinator getting fired from their team. I mean, this whole situation is literally like, go ahead and just let yourself out the door, go ahead and quit on your own so we don't have to officially fire you, basically, type of thing. But for the immediate press release, Greg Roman to pursue other opportunities, January 19th, 2022. After coaching the Baltimore Ravens offense to a 3rd playoff appearance in 4 years, Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman is stepping away from the team to pursue other opportunities. Roman's offenses while in Baltimore set a number of all-time NFL records, including the NFL record for rushing yards in a season with 3,216 in 2019. Wasn't that the year where they like ran it unnecessarily in a game that they were already winning or something like that, where they were supposed to take a knee? I think that was the same year. Rushing yards by a quarterback in a season, Lamar Jackson's 1,206 yards in 2019. Average time of possession, 34 minutes 47 seconds in 2019. Most games in a season with over 200 yards rushing, 6 in 2020, and most consecutive games with over 100 yards rushing, 43 from 2019 to 2021. Or maybe that was the record that they were trying to get. Either way, I remember them forcing a record like they weren't playing, and the other team was upset about it. In addition, the Ravens offense under Roman was the first in NFL history to have 3 700-yard rushers in consecutive seasons, 2019-2020, and it's still the only offense offense ever to average over 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing in the season. 206 rushing and 201.6 yards passing in 2019. So that's balance. And Mark Bullock brought up a good point. He retweeted this and said the first paragraph of this release, basically what I just read to y'all, reads like a targeted Google ad for Ron Rivera. I'm pretty sure Ron Rivera already knows about Greg Roman, but I'm pretty sure if he read that, he's like, oh yeah, we got to do whatever we got to do to get him here today, which worries me. But we got to remember, as many bad things as you can say about Greg Roman, Lamar Jackson did have his MVP year with him. After a year, his rookie season, where he was still pretty raw, the reason that he went so late in the first round, the Ravens had to trade back up into the first round to get him because they wanted that 5th-year rookie contract. And they're still in an ugly situation with him right now, trying to pay him long term. So it really didn't help them that much. But remember, Lamar Jackson was considered very raw coming out of the draft, and Greg Roman led him to an MVP level season. And so I'm definitely expecting Ron Rivera, Martin Mayhew, and the Commanders to see him as a potential offensive coordinator candidate. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already trying to reach him. Maybe they haven't gotten a chance to talk to him yet because a lot of people are possibly calling him, but I'm pretty sure Rivera and them saw that notification and got on it immediately. Immediately started a conference call or a conference FaceTime or something. Especially with Greg Roman wanting to run the ball like crazy and how much success he's had running the ball the past few years. I would be shocked if Rivera doesn't at the very least pursue Greg Roman. Now, whether Greg Roman wants to come here and accept that job is a completely different story. But this whole 2-to-1 run pass thing, which first of all is a lie. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the main point to take from that is that Rivera does want to run the ball a lot, especially with Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. Most notably, Brian Robinson. And even though our offensive line, even while last year very banged up and not playing well overall, they were terrible in pass protection, but they were pretty good in run blocking. So this team is literally built to run the ball effectively. Again, I prefer it to be more balanced if anything, and I prefer honestly a 2-to-1 pass run ratio, but you got to be able to run the ball to succeed at the NFL level. And one guy that could definitely help you do that is Greg Roman. Remember, he's been an offensive coordinator for 10 seasons on 3 different teams. In those 10 seasons, Roman has had the #1 rush attack in the NFL 4 times and has never finished lower than 8th in the NFL in rush offense. Now, of course, we got to remember the fact that he had Lamar Jackson for some of those years, but not all of them. And of course, Howell isn't as fast as Lamar Jackson, obviously, but he does deserve credit for developing Lamar Jackson as a passer. Also deserves some credit for Tyler Huntley looking as good as he does. And the reason that a lot of Commanders fans hope that we just bring Tyler Huntley in as a franchise quarterback, especially last offseason before we got Sam Howell. And if Washington wants to run an offense that's RPO heavy, like how Howell's was against the Cowboys, that deep shot that was like the most beautiful deep ball we've seen all season from any Commanders quarterback, the one to Terry McLaurin on the right side of the field, the only ones that even kind of compete. Taylor Heinicke had a couple, Carson Wentz had a couple, but that was beautiful, especially from a guy that wasn't getting first team reps until the week of that game. That was amazing in itself, but I believe that may have been like a play action or an RPO or something like that. We ran the mess out of the ball, ran a lot of RPO to set that play up later on in the game. And if you want to do more stuff like that, Greg Roman is great for that. But also the negatives to Greg Roman, even though he had the #1 rushing attack in the NFL 4 times and was no longer than 8th in 10 seasons of being an offensive coordinator in the NFL, you also got to remember that he was bottom 5 in passing offense all but 2 of those 10 years. He was 13th in yards one year, 23rd in yards another year, 2012 and 2021. But outside of that, everywhere he's been has had a bottom 5 passing offense as far as yards go. But it's kind of like at the same time, if you can run the ball that well, do you have to be a top passing attack? And I would definitely argue at the very least be average. Bottom 5, no matter how well you're running the ball, is not good enough, and there's a reason they haven't gone to a Super Bowl and definitely have not won a Super Bowl. Running can only get you so far. Even when you have the best running quarterback in the NFL, it can only take you but so far. Even Michael Vick doesn't have a Super Bowl at his best. And that was back when running the ball was even more effective than it is now. So I love the idea of having a top 5, at the very least top 8 rushing attack in the NFL, but can you at least have an average passing attack to go with it, not bottom 5? And Robert Griffin had a great tweet about him. Greg Roman may be one of the greatest run game tacticians I've ever been around at the NFL level. Running backs and tight ends love his system because they eat, but wide receivers absolutely hate it. That's why free agent wide receivers didn't want to go or stay in Baltimore. It was never about Lamar Jackson, and that's a really fair point. because we have some really good running backs, but our tight ends are questionable, and our receiving group is easily the best group we have on this team. I mean, you can argue it's between receivers and defensive line is our best position groups on the team. And why would you pay Terry McLaurin long term and draft Jahan Dotson in round 1 when wide receiver wasn't even our biggest need going into that draft? Honestly, linebacker, corner, and you can argue safety and maybe offensive line were our biggest needs heading into that 2022 NFL draft where we took Jahan Dotson first overall in round 1. Quarterback as well, and yet we still took a receiver in the first round. Why would you spend all of that capital and sign Curtis Samuel to a pretty good deal a couple of years before just to go out there and run the ball all the time? That's why that 2-to-1 run pass ratio was a complete obvious lie from Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew. I don't even know why they said it out loud. And then that's why Greg Roman may not be a great idea. Now, Greg Roman can come here and do what he does with the run game, but also figure out the passing game, which I think he could potentially do. I mean, when you think about it with Sam Howell, even though he's not the same runner as Lamar Jackson, he has the potential to be a better passer for sure. I mean, that deep bomb to Terry McLaurin and the way that he even throws slants. I mean, he throws slants in a way that Jahan and Terry can continue running at full speed and be able to get some extra yak yards there. That's the type of thrower that Sam Howell is, and those little differences are big on the field. That's the difference between a 5-yard slant going for 7 yards because the receiver gets tackled 2 yards later, or going for 30. And that opens up an offense immensely, and I feel like Greg Roman would love to have a quarterback like Sam Howell with his talent. Again, you can still run the ball with him. He may not be as fast as Lamar Jackson, but he breaks more tackles, and he literally is like a running back. I mean, as far as like vision, his agility to jump cut and things like that is literally running back like. Which is why I would easily argue that Sam Howell is far more mobile than Taylor Heinicke. He may not be much faster, but as far as agility and power, he has Taylor Heinicke beat immensely. And then that's just one way that even though he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson, he makes up for it by being able to break tackles, even break sacks in the backfield, shrugging guys off of him, and then using his legs to look up the field and make a pass down the field, or eventually just running to get it himself. So you can still design an offense around Sam Howell's legs, even if you don't run the ball necessarily as much with him as Lamar Jackson. You still have Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson be able to run the ball a lot. And again, my main point is, if I'm looking at it with a very optimistic view, best case scenario, if Greg Roman comes here, we would still have a heavy run game, but Sam Howell's ability to be a better passer than Lamar Jackson would be able to open up the passing game as well. Now, do I think that's very likely to happen? I'm not sure at all. So that's why I'm very iffy on us picking up Greg Roman. In my opinion, I'm not just super excited, like let's go get Greg Roman right now type of thing, but I can see like a glass half full best case scenario thing where Greg Roman here could end up working out very well, but I can also see other scenarios where it doesn't, where we're limited because he's just so run heavy and doesn't know how to develop a good enough passing game for it to really matter. And again, at the same time, Chris Cooley has a good point. Don't be upset at Rivera for wanting to be a 2-to-1 run offense and immediately say you want Greg Roman as offensive coordinator, because that is pretty hypocritical. But another thing that we got to note is that now there's another team in the offensive coordinator market, and with Justin Herbert needing an offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson needing an offensive coordinator, it's ugly, man. There's heavy competition out there. I like Sam Howell's potential and his talent, but if you're an offensive coordinator, would you prefer to coach Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, or Sam Howell? And then I've already done a whole video talking about, for like 5+ minutes, all of the teams that we're competing against with offensive coordinator openings and why we could potentially be the least attractive and also the most attractive at the same time. But just to remind y'all and just to update y'all, now with the Ravens needing an offensive coordinator, that is 10 teams on the lookout for an offensive coordinator right now. So it's ugly, man. At first, it started with only like 4 of us. Now it's like 10. Buccaneers fired their offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich. The Chargers fired theirs. I mean, it's just been getting ugly left and right, man. And then on to my next point, man. You got to be wary when the fan base of a team is this excited about their offensive coordinator being let go, fired, whatever you want to say, parted ways. I mean, it's complete memes everywhere. It's memes of Lamar Jackson dancing to music. And I've been seeing some hilarious ones that I've actually literally even laughed out loud about. I mean, they even had the Wiz with Michael Jackson, the It's a Brand New Day thing with everybody in that big building dancing around. I mean, they have every meme imaginable, man. People dancing, celebrating all over the place. Literally, if you type in Greg Roman on Twitter, you're gonna see more fans happy about it than even information on the situation as far as like Ian Rappaport and guys reporting it. It's literally just full of fans celebrating, and the word that they're mainly using is that they're free. Like Greg Roman just had a reign of tyranny over them. And this is probably the funniest reaction that I've seen, the fact that somebody did a voiceover over this SpongeBob clip.
Well, what can I say? It's been great knowing you,
Greg Roman.
Good luck somewhere else. Boo ho, boo ho, boo ho, boo. Boo ho.
But also, Emmanuel Acho, I think that's how you pronounce it. I see him on TV all the time, but I have no idea how to pronounce his last name. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But he had a tweet and he had a video explaining the tweet about 1 minute and 30 seconds. But I'm just gonna read the tweet. And he's basically saying that it's not all Greg Roman's fault. Now, maybe he has his faults and things like that. But you gotta remember, he took Alex Smith to an NFC championship. He took Colin Kaepernick to a Super Bowl. And then he had Lamar Jackson as a unanimous MVP. Not just an MVP, a unanimous one. 1 year later, I believe, after everybody considered him one of the most raw quarterbacks to come out of a draft and get drafted in the first round in a while. People were looking at the Ravens crazy for drafting Lamar Jackson. Remember, some people were even calling him a running back and that he should switch positions at the NFL level. And that guy found a way to turn Lamar Jackson into an MVP within 2-3 seasons. So, I mean, there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad. Very interesting. I really want to see how y'all feel about it in the comment section. But before we go, shouts out to my boy Big Douglas, another Commanders and Georgia Bulldog fan. My new shirt came in and everything. Yes, sir. Shouts out to my boy Big Douglas, big Commanders fan. Make sure y'all subscribe to him on YouTube. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Doug McCray NFL. But he had an interview with Ben Albright, one of the reporters that's super in the mix with everything NFL. And when he hears rumors, there's some concrete stuff going on behind the scenes. It's not just that he heard something, it's something happening. And basically, he talked about Eric Bieniemy potentially being the Commanders' next offensive coordinator for several reasons. First of all, again, make sure you go check out Big Douglas's video because I don't want to steal any of his content or anything. But one of the interesting points from the interview is that Ben Albright said that Eric Bieniemy more than likely won't get a head coaching job this cycle. First of all, he only got one interview as a head coach, so he's very limited in that way. Also, his previous contract with the Chiefs that's ending this offseason was only for 1 year. So basically, they're just ready to move on from him anyway. They just brought him back for 1 extra year. All right, we'll do you this favor, get back on your feet type of thing. Prove to another team that you deserve to be there because we're done with you. And basically, that it's up to him if he wants to come here because he has very limited options out there. And we may be pretty limited in the options that want to come here because of the whole new ownership thing and chaos just behind the Commanders organization, period. We're a very chaotic team, arguably the most chaotic team in the NFL. And a lot of people may not want to deal with that. But at the same time, Eric Bieniemy is very limited in his options, so it may just be a match made in heaven. And talk about the complete opposite from Greg Roman to Eric Bieniemy as far as philosophies. Greg Roman is one of the top run game designers in the NFL, and Eric Bieniemy, you can argue, is one of the top passing game designers in the NFL. But at the same time, how much credit does Eric Bieniemy deserve for how great Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid have been, and with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and all of those guys? So that's why a lot of people doubt Eric Bieniemy, but I'll be interested in seeing what he does here on a 1-year rental. We'll see. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, especially the Greg Roman part of it. Do you want him? Do you not want him? Why and why not? I tried to give you both sides, the good and the bad. Let me know what your conclusion is. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.